Good evening. The Montgomery Amateur Radio Club here in Maryland is proud to present Jim Montgomery, WB3KAS, who is going to present tonight information about work that he's doing that he's heavily involved with. Jim is a prominent member of our local amateur radio community. So here is a little bit more about Jim that you may not know. Jim is originally from Niagara County in West New York. That's right, Jim, right? It's West New York? I'm assuming that's right.
Western New York.
Good, thank you. He graduated from the National Institute for the Deaf on campus of the Rochester Institute of Technology with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering in 1971. Jim served an entire career, 31 years, with the Naval Air and Sea Systems Command and retired in 2002. He worked on, among other things, the AH-1T Hilo, the Cruise Missile Program, and Aegis project. Jim got his first class FCC license in 1978. He started out on CW and stuck with it ever since. In 1992, along with his wonderful wife, Wanda, KA3AHI did a one-week de-expedition to Turks and Caicos Islands, scuba diving by day and de-exing by night, and making 650 contacts. In 2017, Jim operated Field Day at the Fairbanks Amateur Radio Club in Alaska and made CW contact with Calvert County's emergency coordinator, Sean, on 80 meters. Jim enjoys 12-volt DC portable operations anywhere. He joined the Prince George County's ARES program in 2006 and became its emergency coordinator in 2008. He also became the ARRL Maryland DC Section Emergency Coordinator in 2012. So Jim is here to talk to us tonight about his latest ARES projects. And you'll want to listen and see if you can help. And it's all very important work. So thank you, Jim, for taking time to join us. And so now it's over to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if we can share the screen.
Yeah, you got it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
There you go. I'm sorry, is it up?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, fine, thank you. Well, first of all, Alex, thanks for getting me back here. And it's been a while since I've seen the gang. I appreciate the invite. And what we're going to try to get across to everybody is, along with how we support the medical region hospitals, I think what we're going to try to do is explain to everybody the behind the scenes of how it takes to get the people into the hospitals to support the service agencies. There's a couple of slides we will show you what we say to the hospitals when we go visit them. But most of this is the support that an organization up in Elkwood, Maryland does for the county hospital program. So we'll start off with the agenda. Now, the disclaimer I'm going to talk about is what we tell the hospitals so that the pucker factor goes away. There's no intimidation, and they're not frightened with us, and it makes a more pleasant presentation. While we are here in the hospitals, the Maryland Medical Region, Maryland Hospital Association, a meeting we had in July last year that got the project off to get radios in hospitals. I have a process chart. We'll explain how we get from point A to point B. We'll talk about the drills and exercises very briefly, and then I have 2-3 slides on this and that. And then we have a summary and questions. So the disclaimers we like to tell them is, look, when Wanda and I go to hospitals, we're not selling anything. We're not tied to manufacturers. We're not receiving any compensation from anybody. We might take a cup of coffee or something from the hospital, but that's about it. We're not agents of the government. We're not conducting any binding agreements with your organization. We are simply volunteer hospitals who want to make a difference. Okay, so why are we here? Maryland, DC suction radio operators are trained for exercises, drills, and the real thing. Now, the exercises in the state, medical region, county, JACO, and the tabletop. JACO stands for the Joint Accreditation, Joint Commission Accreditation of Hospital Organization. Hospitals need to be accredited so they can get Medicare payments. That's just one thing. The other is just to make sure that what they do in the hospitals is above board and they're doing the right thing for the patients. On the drill side, let me back up or something. Drills and exercises. Exercises are what, again, state medical region, we don't put those together, but the state at the state level does. Drills is what Wanda and I put together for the suction. And they're 4 times a year: January, April, July, and December. Every now and then we do not do the July drill because it interferes with the 4th of July celebrations and the fact that vacations is just about in full swing. So it's not surprising that we might not have one in July. Also, the hospitals are trained for the actual events. If they can get through the exercises, the drill, the club training, the Aries training, they can make it through the event. To support the last mile. Now, the last mile, I think I'm going to let you read what the definition in Google, and I think you're going to find it interesting more than anything else. It's a real WinLink development team phrase that they use when you run WinLink to get the emails for the served agencies out to the last mile. So look it up, and I think you'll enjoy that. So what did it take to get you into the hospitals? MHA, Maryland Hospital Association, we'll talk about that later, greases the skids. High-level hospital management buy-in. If the hospital don't want the areas, if the hospital do not want radios in the hospitals, we just stop it right there. There's no pressure on them. We don't beat them about the brow to make them like it. The next thing is county's area support agreement. If the hospital agree that they'd like to have radios in it, the next step is to get the local county support. If we don't have that, then they don't get the radios because there's nobody to support the served agency. Hasn't happened yet, but I think it's about to. Hospital radio operators have a training plan, equipment site survey, which is important. We just in time caught one hospital told us we didn't have to buy any cable because they had RG6 and they had plenty of it and they could use that for our radios. And we nipped that in the bud right away. Specification, procurement, acceptance. We have a standard spec that we've been using since 2010. Now it's being modified. Talk about that. Give us an operating space, but don't put it 7 floors away from the incident command center. It happened at the doctor's hospital. It took a while to get us to say, hey, put us across the hall so that when you need to get something out real quick, you only have to walk a few feet across the hall instead of 7 floors down. And then finally, one more thing that it takes to get you in here is point of contact emails and cell numbers. You'd be surprised how many times, the probability of one of the 6 hospitals at any one time, we have new points of contact. Southern Maryland Hospital, which is right up the road from here, has gone through 4 in the last probably almost 5 or 6 years. So we have to stay on top of that, let them get to know you. Face-to-face is very important. But pandemic has been a real struggle. the bottom line on this is MHA has 53 member hospitals. That is not all the hospitals in the state. That's just 53 of them that are members of MHA. We're going to be trying to work our way through what's in the hospitals now. And so that number 53 comes down quite a bit. Here is the Maryland County Medical Regions. There are 5 regions in the state. And for those who don't live here, here you are. That's where you are. Now, keep your eye on Region 1 and 2 for a moment. Allegheny, Garrett, Region 1, Washington, Frederick, Region 2. Each one of these regions has what's called a planner, and he is sort of the head dude in the organization to help with the funding that comes in from the federal government. Getting ahead of myself, but I have to bring that up. So you have 5 regions. You would think they have 5 planners, but they combined Region 1 and 2. Region 1, because there's 1 hospital in each county. And I think what they found out that 1 hospital in each county, there wasn't much for anybody to do for Region 1 or Region 2, so they combined them. Everything else remains the same. I'm not going to read this except for the last thing. You can go up on the Hospital Association website and get a complete read of the mission and vision, etc. But the bottom line here for the vision is that they will be the most effective advocate for improving healthcare across the state. They're not lobbyists, but they are lobbyists. They are our eyes and ears, keeping track of the different rules and regulations. And you can imagine trying to keep the mask mandates and everything else squared. That's their job. And then they flow that down to the hospital. The mission is to enhance the ability of the facilities to provide effective health care. They have a coordinated effort with the JACO organization and will coordinate the exercises that they have. Save lives during emergency disasters and exceed the day-to-day capability of healthcare response system. One, there is the day-to-day budget, as a general rule, pads it a little bit for the expectations of a disaster. But as we all know, it's never enough. Federal funding is on an annual basis from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And I'll talk about that coming up. MHA is located in Elkridge in Howard County. They have a very nice facilities. They have a rule now during the pandemic that if you're not an employee, you don't get in. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Hospital Preparedness Program. You'll hear me say HPP maybe throughout the presentation. It's in the form of federal grants. It's managed by the region planners I talked about earlier. So you've got 4 planners go into the coalition that's in the region, those counties that make up the region, and they formulate an annual budget. So you give and take what it takes to get one through. And then in bold, is to enhance their ability to prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters, etc., etc. Therefore, amateur radio equipment procurement is allowed under the HPP program. Do I hear an amen for that? Because when we used to go in and talk to these people, they said, I have no money. And we told them, wait a minute, there's grant money for you to do that. Oh, okay, so what do you want us to have? And it's smooth sailing from then on. So why is the discussion on MHA? We used to go literally door to door to the hospitals. It never worked. Yeah, John Doe couldn't make it. Mary Lou was in a meeting, etc., every excuse you can think of. And for any meeting we were going to have scheduled, it would be delayed, postponed, canceled. And it's a long time coming. On the surface, they really thought we were selling them something they didn't need. Okay. War story. We were down at St. Mary's Hospital in 2012. Took us, I would say, a couple of months to get in there and have scheduled to talk to someone. They sent a young man down to the lobby. We gave him the presentation. And then we say, what do you think? He says, oh, I don't think we're interested. I said, okay, what didn't you like about the presentation? He didn't comment. All he said was, I'm out of here in 2 weeks. Have a good day. Got up and walked out. 2012 down to 2020, we talked to the planners and said, can you get us into St. Mary's Hospital? And within days, we had a scheduled meeting. And we didn't meet some flunky like we had before. We had the vice president of the hospital, you had the emergency manager, and the head of facilities. Those are the three top people you will always want to talk to if you're going to go into a hospital. The facilities guy wants to know where do you want your antennas and how do we run your cables. The emergency manager wants to know what you're doing. And the vice president in charge of the hospital at the end of the meeting said, let's do it, go for it. Well, that was December 2020, I believe. COVID kicked in January, February, March timeframe. We haven't been back since. And that's just the way it is for the last 3 years. We do have an open project at Atlantic General in Worcester County. And we have a couple of issues with them. We'll talk about that later. The next region we're going to pursue is Region 3. And that is, I should have my memorized, but I don't. I got to cheat a little bit here. That's Baltimore, Harford County, Anne Arundel, Carroll County, Howard. And the good news is we understand that all those hospitals in those counties, not all the hospitals in those counties, but hospitals in those counties have radios. Rhonda and I we're fortunate enough to be involved with Harford County. They have two hospitals. Both of them have radios, D710s, as a matter of fact, for WinLink, and they are up and running on a standard basis. So that's the next one we're pursuing with, for those who know, the EC up in Howard County, Andy Portajar, N3AWP. He and his people are just itching to get into the hospital. We hope we can get them in there before the end of the summer or hopefully the end of the year. That's why we're talking about MHA. How do we get in the hospitals now? It's much easier, a lot better. And so here's part of the meeting we had in July. They want Johnny Tolbert, the acting director from MHA, and Matt Jones, the Region 5 planner at the time. He's no longer with us. He's an Army reservist in the medical field. He's now at the Pentagon. So we don't have a Region 5 coordinator, a planner right now. And by the way, that is vacant. Region 3 is vacant. Region 4 is vacant. So the person running all three is pretty busy. His name was Andy Loren. He's thinking about getting his ham license, so that's in our favor. At the meeting, we discussed options for member hospitals. For example, in Region 3, selected hospitals have radios. Don't know anything about the radios. Is it just voice only? Can they do digital? What kind of system do they have? Do they have battery backup, etc.? Lay out a plan to achieve the goals, which I think is the next slide. Now the issues supporting non-ARES counties. We have some counties with hospitals and no ARES support. That's not good. That's mostly on the eastern shore. The non-availability of a D710G, which has been known almost worldwide as the WinLink standard, is no longer available. And I got a note to talk about that at the end of the presentation. This is an eye chart. Don't expect you to read it, but this is the process that I laid out for getting cables run, getting equipment set up, checking out the equipment at the end. They get a radio card, install the radios on the radio card, and then the 4 blocks at the bottom is while all that is being done, we have a training program strictly for what the hospital team has to do when they come on board. And then finally, level 3 at the bottom is introducing the ham radio to the hospital, finalize it with a handshake, and they're off and running, and we'll step out of the picture and we go do another hospital. That's everything in a nutshell. Okay. This is the letter A represents areas in the hospitals. West of the Chesapeake is one in every county. I just didn't bother to put them in, but to make the point down here, the four areas groups in the Eastern Shore, the Talbot, Caroline, Dorchester, and Wacomico. Talbot has 10 Aries people. Caroline has 3. Dorchester 4. Wacomico has 8, to a total of 25. There's 25 Aries people, members registered as Aries on the Eastern Shore. We have twice as many in our county alone. This is a real problem. And in every one of my reports, every month that goes up to the league, through Marty Pittinger, the section manager, I voice a concern that we need to do something about this. Atlantic General hosted a SET for us in 2017. Put the word out to all of the Eastern Shore specifically that we want to get on ham radio operators down here. Turned out that 2 people from Talbot County came down, husband and wife team, and they did very well. We had the EC from Frederick County, Mike Myers. We had people, I believe, from Charles County. The point is, there was no interest on the Eastern Shore to come help us with the SET. It was sad, but we made it through. So as Rhonda likes to say, how do you do business when you can't do business? This is the major point we make to the hospitals. Number one, when we first did this at Southern Maryland Hospital, our point of contact says, I want to know how we get emails out of the hospitals if our internet is down. And I said, and Wanda said, yes, sir, I understand. We will have provisions to do that for you, and we will demonstrate to you, and they've been happy ever since. How to do business when you can't do business is a frightening phrase that the emergency managers, the hospital people are really concerned with. And I think we have it covered once we get amateur radio into the hospital. That pretty much is the talk on the background of what takes place to get radios in the hospital. And I'm just going to throw 3 things out here for you to be aware of. 7 years ago, this month, we had a hospital drill. The one this month was on the 9th. And then I'm going to talk about a worst case hospital support loadout. So don't everybody get frightened with this next slide. This is what it was like about 7 years ago. This is all the RF going through the air. Everybody was working at the same time, different frequencies. It was a nightmare. It was expected that everybody came to the after action meeting complaining. All I heard was complaining. It was too much. It was unmanageable, and every adjective you could think of. So once the brouhaha settled down, I said, okay, what you just experienced in this exercise is what you're going to experience if it really happens here, if a hurricane comes up Chesapeake Bay. And guess what? It was quiet the rest of the evening. So I did this to make a point. And I summarized it with, it took us about hour and a half, maybe to get settled down and everything worked out. Go back to Katrina and the report that I got, it's a mixed bag. It took them almost up 10 days, is one report, that they could get it all together. The footprint, of course, was 400 mile radius or diameter, however you want to look at it. And the hams that went down there had to coordinate all that. And it took them a couple of days. So that was the point of bringing this up today. It's not going to be easy. You hope that it's not everybody. But as I said before, you get Hurricane Chester coming up the bay and you really got a load on your hands. Okay. This was on the 9th. This was the second quarter hospital drill. I wanted to show up and thank everybody from Montgomery County who supported Tom Horn and Al Taylor up at Holy Cross. Okay, and for you now down here we have what's his name, Vic. It was a relay for them if they needed it. Also on here was Dave, W2LNX. I don't have him on here because I didn't get a position report. One of the things they asked was required to do during the drill is put up a WinLink position report, all automatic. You put in a set of coordinates, a comment in the bottom, post it, get it up into the internet, and the little balloons show up. So we had Bowie Health Center for Prince George's County. Down here we had Patrick, KB3UIZ at Charles Regional Medical Center, K3CAL over at Calvert Hospital Medical Center, Rob Hoyt down here at St. Mary's. So it took a while to get it set up, coordinating all the frequencies on the 440 linking system, CMOG, and that was a godsend. That was a very, very good way to do it. Coordinated all the HF stuff on a VHF linking system. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about supporting a loadout for a served agency. Excuse me. We're going to take Prince George's Hospital as an example. We have 6 hospitals, 2 health departments, 2 emergency operations center. The one that you all know of is the Prince George's County Emergency Operations, and then we also have the Fire Services Building in Lanham. Total of 10 served agency. Worst case analysis comes up if we had to do all 10 and support all 10 for one day or a week. This is the way it rolls out. I require 3 people whenever they get deployed. You got a voice operator, a digital operator, and an ICS interface with the incident command center. We call that the 3rd man in the room. Before I go any further, let me tell you why. In the years that Rhonda and I just worked by ourselves at Southern Maryland Hospital, they would come up to us. They had an action item or an inject in the measles to get this message out. So she would be on the radio circuit. I would be doing WinLink, and they would be jumping up and down. They'd wave the piece of paper in front. We got it, and it was very intuitively obvious that they were just a impediment to the process. So now we're going to have a 3rd person go in there that would be the interface between the incident command center and the radio operators. This is what they do in the military. This is what they do on board ship. It seems to work very well. So we're going to assume 6-hour shifts. That makes 4 shifts a day. So 1 agency per day, 3 ops per ship, got 4 shifts, that's 12 operators. 12 operators. 1 agency for the day, you need 12. And for every agency you have, you multiply by the number of agencies, that's 120 operators a day. If the hospitals are held down for internet, for phones, that's a pretty big load. We can't support 6 hospitals. Excuse me, we can't support 10 agencies. Most counties can't support more than the number of area members that they have. Okay, 6 hours is too long. Can't do that. Let's go to 4 hours, see what happens. You shorten up the shifts, you need more people. One agency per day, 3 operators for 6 shifts, 18 people. 12, now it's up to 18. For every 18, you multiply by 18. So for the 6 agencies we have in Prince George's County, if they had to be up and running and supported by Aries radio operators, 108 per day for all 6. Just hospitals. All 10 served agency 180. We only have 40-some people in the Aries group. You work it backwards and you can do maybe 2 hospitals a day for a time. So I wanted to leave you with how you put your loadout together, what you might be asked to support when the worst case comes down the pike. So in summary, MHA now is our new best friend. This is how we're going to be getting into hospitals. Should be pretty easy. Setting up either demonstrations or a talk with them. Outfitting the MHA hospital is going to be a challenge unless we can figure out a way how to come up with a replacement for the D710. And I'm going to throw out a question and going to leave an action item. I believe it. How about that? And finally, Worcester County support is not resolved. They haven't called back. We visited them for a day. They had a nice meeting. I think they're a brand new club. They got put together, I think in February. They had their field day. We went and visited. And I think they had the expectations of doing other things rather than support a hospital. They have not returned calls, not returned emails. So we're not out of the woods with that yet. Before we get to questions, I want to throw out and see if anybody is familiar with a sound card modem. Maybe let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. And we get back to just let's see. Am I oops. Have I undone the
Negative.
okay, fine, thanks. So if anybody's doing any digital comms, there is I don't know much about it. It's called a sound card, software sound card modem. The author is from the Ukraine, which is a good deal. And that's all I know. Is anybody familiar with that, ever heard of it, or can help me out on that?
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
Jay.
Jim, this is WB2U. I use a sound modem every day in both my gateway station. And you're not hearing me?
I don't see you.
Well,
I think you said
I'm not just, I'm Vic, WB2U.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. You need to read my lips, but I know about sound modem. I use it all the time. I use it on my gateway stations and my client station. So what, do you have a specific question about it? That's used, sound modem is used for packet. That's the packet modem WinLink.
Okay, my point here is, I understand you just put a cable between the radio and your computer and you don't need a hard TNC, is that correct?
Yeah, well, I do have a sound. I mean, I have like a signal link in between my VHF. Well, wait, correction. Yes, I do need what they call a digital radio adapter or a sound link. I mean, a signal link.
Okay.
For VHF.
Okay, time out just a second. I don't want to take up the time here, but let you and me get together offline and you walk me through that, okay?
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
Okay,
glad to.
appreciate it. Thank you, Montgomery County Club, for that. That's terrific. One last thing.
This is Dave.
Dave, yes.
So that's to keep sane during COVID. I've been focusing almost exclusively on WinLink. So I've been exploring the sound modems. So yes, UZ7HO.
Yeah, that's it.
Hello, I hope he's all right, surviving this. And Al Taylor, KN3, you introduced me to sound modem like about 10 years ago, and it works very well. You set it up that WinLink calls the program and it talks to it over a, should I move the mic closer to my mouth? Or
That's
move
fine.
it-
That's fine.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, so that works well. And there's also another contender out there, which I haven't used, called Direwolf. Repeat, Direwolf.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
Now, in terms of interfaces, there's SignalLink, the old warhorse, and they recently upgraded the internal transformer to allow it to go VARA FM wide. Now, that's a cute engineering trick, the VARA FM wide, but when you have distant gateways, you're lucky to make a connection at any speed, whether it's narrow or wide. And then there is master's communication called the DRA50, which uses a C media chip. And then there's another contender, just brand new, and I bought a couple and it looks very nice. It's a very small unit. It's a little box, which is two things in one. It's very small and the order of like an inch square, or maybe 2 inches cube. This is one USB cable, and you connect it to the radio to do two things: rig control for frequency control and PTT, and of course the sound interface. And that also uses a C media chip. So I've been playing with that on and off, and then I got busy with the class, so that I'll put that off to the side.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll get with you as well and take some notes, because we're behind with Atlantic General, and if I can just put something real simple together that works,
Right.
and give them a number, model number, they can fund that and they can go ahead and buy it, and we'll be off and running.
Right. Now, to answer the problem about the TMD 710 being discontinued, it's younger brother, the TM V71A. It's really the same radio without the built-in packet TNC. But these days they have these sound modem programs such as Sound Modem and Direwolf and VARA. The external, that is the hardware TNC, has been somewhat deprecated. Now,
I appreciate the discussion here also, Vic. I'm very busy in the position of the SEC. There's a lot of other things that I don't have time for, but now that I have two experts here, I'm going to be tapping on you for some discussions later on. I want to finish up with one more thing, and then we can go for questions and answers. How many people know the radio officer, Kenny Greenhouse, PG County? We have anybody here who knows him or knew him? No, he just passed away last Friday. KB3IIE, great friend of mine. We worked a lot of projects together. Spent a lot of time at Sandy Point doing radio work as soon as he retired. Very sudden to hear that. Nobody seems to know anything about the details, funeral arrangements, whatever. But I just wanted you to know, he's a very good friend of mine. Passed away last Friday. So we can take questions, whatever, and go from there. Thank you. No questions? Well, I guess, how about you, Tom?
Well, Dave had a question when he raised his hand.
Who did?
Dave,
Dave.
N3ADE.
I don't see him.
He's there behind in front of the house. Dave, you're muted. Were you raising your hand to answer Jim's question?
No?
He must be having problems with his
Okay.
audio.
Okay.
Okay, but Jim, this is Tom Horn, W3TDH.
Yes, sir.
There are other ways to tackle all of the connection problems, but there's one that some people will suggest to you that I'm going to urge you not to have anything to do with, and that is individually made up connecting cables. Everything we use across a county or across an area should be the same from the hospitals in that county, so that all the people who will serve as operators in that county can get familiar with it and make it falling off a log simple for them to do it. And that way, when they get sent into the other hospital, because people are exhausted or you're shorthanded, they already know what's there. They don't have to deal with somebody's one-off unique solution. It's not that there's anything bad with the solution for a single operator in their home, but if it's a one-off, you've got a big problem with multiple operators who won't necessarily be familiar with the settings and how it works.
Not to mention the Erie's mat, if you're going to bring them in from Virginia or Pennsylvania, I hear you. And that is something I have written down to talk to the Erie's mat folks in the Mid-Atlantic Erie's mat team. And so that'll be something they haven't discussed or talked about, but I certainly will bring that to their attention. That's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, I had a question for Dave, W2LNX. He was talking about another device for your sound modem card. And Dave, I just wanted to know whether you were referring to the DigiRig setup or not, because that's one that I would certainly want to point Jim towards. But again, I'm a neophyte with that right now. But the nice thing is it's compact, very simple hookups. They already have connectors made for that particular sound card interface, and they've got it for the ICOM 706, a couple of the ASU products, and we'll even do Baofeng 5UV. So it's I don't know if that was the one that you were referring to, Dave.
Yeah, I mentioned that. I said it's a small little cube, to about 2 inches cubic inches. That's the one. So I have a couple of them. I tried it. It just works. In fact, it uses the built-in drivers in Windows. It just worked. I mean, there's nothing to say about it. It just worked.
Well, the nice thing about that too is that while you have a full duplex relationship between the radio and the computer, it'll also work in a simplex mode. And that, had I known at the time when I ordered my cables, the fellow that manufactures these would have put the diode in with the little module, and I wouldn't have to be waiting on this diode arriving to get mine working. So anyway, it's good that you have linked up with him, and I'll talk with you offline later about how things develop.
Okay, we had more questions, I think. Somebody was trying to get through.
Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing us to come in here and give you a very brief, the behind the scenes of radio operators in the Maryland, DC section. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jim. You are a local legend and very important to our amateur radio emergency communications community. So thank you for everything you and your lovely wife, Wanda, do.
Very good. Appreciate it. And I want to put this back on gallery. I think it's gallery.
Yeah, Jim.
Yes, sir.
The middle of May, tap me, and I'll help you out.
I'm sorry.
And
say again.
I said in the middle of May when
Okay.
When
I got it. No.
I'm finished with the class and the testing and everything that goes with it.
Okay. Okay. I want to see if there was anybody. There's Chuck James helped us out, and I'm trying to see. Didn't say hello to Fred CSX. By the way, do you know Tony WA3 CSX? Fred?
No, I don't. I think I've previously looked for people that happen to have CSX as a
Okay.
suffix to see if they were also interested in trains or whatever. But I think that
he's
one
a-
he may have just gotten that call by.
That's Tony Brooks, and he is a train buff.
Oh,
And
okay.
I really can look another one up in Montgomery County, and so we had a little chuckle about that. So that worked out. Good to see Paul LQV and Bob N3DDS. Saw your traffic on RunLink. I don't know if I can. Let's see. Do I know anybody else? Oh, there's Vic. I know him. Let's see. And oh, Gene. Very good evening, Gene. Glad to see you on here.
Yeah, I had a question for you, if you don't mind, Jim.
Say again.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I know you're there. Well, let's see if I can make it out.
Okay, will Elon Musk's Starlight satellite system eliminate the need for ham radio in these hospitals?
Oh yeah, well, I got to write that down. Maybe I can go have a vacation now. Yeah, a lot of people are saying things like that. They really are. And all you got to do is say, "What are you going to do when the lights go out?" Never mind. I hear you.
So my reaction to that, we forget that we are really communications enthusiasts, and that includes amateur radio. So those folks are more comfortable to get a box that says Starlink on it and make it work than some hapless, harried hospital person who hasn't slept in 24 hours. So
Yeah, basically you just pay your monthly bill and it works. Starlink.
I still don't know what the pricing is. It make
Well,
a really nice WinLink gateway interface. You point up.
yeah. I'll give you another work story. We had a drill over here at Southern Hospital, and we were supposed to check out the satellite phone with the funny looking rubber ducky. And they asked the safety officer, could you go outside, make a contact so we can get something checked off on the thing we have to do? And Bob said, I'm not going outside. There's a hurricane out there. It's 120 miles an hour and it might get soaking wet and the radio won't work. They gave him an A+ for that. So that was just a neat story that I wanted to pass on to you. But if there's no more questions, I can let you guys go and continue on. We can stick around, buy some more. There's somebody. Okay, Hank, got your hand up.
Actually, that's my hand clapping. That's one of the emojis they have there. Thank you very much for a good presentation.
Very good. Thank you very much. 73 is all.
Amen. Thanks.
Thanks. All right. Well, thank you, Jim, for taking time to join us tonight. And it was really terrific. And for all the important work that you do in our county and in our state.
I could come back next year just to let you know how good or bad it went for the year. I'd be glad to do that.
You are always welcome. If you want to give us a periodic report on all your important work, that would be stupendous. You are always welcome. So that's it for tonight. We're going to stop the recording, but don't leave. We'll hang around. So thanks for joining us tonight, and 73 to all.
Right. So we're